So I'll just hang out for a bit and see if anyone comes in. And I don't know, mess with these patterns. Still getting used to this live lag. I tested this out with some buddies last night and it was really alienating, so still getting used to that. I'm doing okay. Just hanging out. Mess around with the Octatrack here, because got the final release of 1.40 on it, feeling pretty good. Yeah, let me know if you guys want anything specific covered. Mostly, I just think the big difference is the Midi trigs, and setting that up might be kind of weird, so we can talk about that. Or if you've just got other stuff that you want to know how to do on the Octatrack, we can kind of look into that within reason. I obviously don't have anything plugged in to sample it or anything like that. Pattern tempo changes, okay. Yeah, let's see. Let me go back to something a little more ambient. So pattern tempo change, it's pretty simple. Let me actually close up here. In your project, it's going to start off default to the project tempo speed. That's kind of the way we've always used it. So function and yes, we'll switch that to pattern. And now we actually would probably need to take this back up to 132, I think. Is that what it was? Yeah. So now that's at 132. And if we go back to this, it's gonna make this guy 120 because we didn't set the pattern for that. So now this pattern sounds wrong. So let's bring that up. Maybe we'll go even a little faster on this one. So now if we go back to pattern 2, once this circles around, you'll see it'll jump back down to 132 beats per minute. So that's pattern tempo change. That one's pretty simple. It was a little weird at first because they didn't have, in the first couple betas, they didn't actually have this designed, so you had no way of knowing that it was available. But they got it right before release. So that's that guy. Let's see, what else? Other easy stuff to kind of look at. If I hit stop, we can go into this baseline. They added the preview, obviously. That's pretty easy. Hold a trig, hit yes. and you can hear what's going on. And on the screen, obviously, if you've got parameter locks, it will show you them. But also now if you hold the page, it'll actually show you all of the default settings. So now you can see where your pitch is at default, your rate, etc. for any effects or things you're going. That's a new addition. What else? What else is new? We've got editing multiple trigs. That could be fun. Let's go to a new blank pattern and let's load an empty part and put oh, I don't know. Let's load something up real quick. Yeah, why not? We'll load a single cycle waveform up. Turn that to loop and yep, that is what that is. Let's filter it down so we got more of a simple kind of sound going on. And let's actually give that some release so it doesn't frickin' go forever. There we go. All right. So now we can edit multiple trigs at once, which before kind of sucked really bad. You'd have to do one at a time. So let's say if we wanted to do like an octave bass, like going up and down, you could throw like one trig on and then another trig and go all the way up an octave. And then you'd have to go copy, paste, over and over and over again. So now what we can do is we could just throw 4 trigs down, hold 2 of them, set those to octaves, grab all 4 of those, hit copy, paste 4, paste 4, paste 4. And now we've got a very quick way of getting a sequence in. And then we can maybe take these 3 and go now and make some sort of a weird little pattern. And then we could put a reverb on. And we could maybe say on a couple of these octave ups we want the time in a different domain, and maybe over here we'll bandpass them or something. So that's kind of one of the other main things, is adding, just editing trigs is a lot faster now. I don't know. How's everyone else doing? Anyone got anything specific they want to hear? Anything they want to take a look at? I feel like the Midi stuff in general is pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, I don't know. It's mostly just kind of remembering what note range each type does, because some of them start really low, like the slices and the slots start pretty low, and the chromatic is actually pretty high. It's a little weird. This feels like it could use some reverb too, huh? Sample has a terrible click at the beginning of it. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Oh, because it's a static machine. That's why we can't do anything super nice. Well, never mind. I was going to try and get rid of that click, but we'll just leave. We'll live with it. We'll just lean into it and let it really splash the reverb. When in doubt, just make things dirty. So I don't know. Yeah. Does anyone else want to put a recommendation up on what we should look at? That's kind of fun. Let's put an LFO on that. I'm not seeing anything show up in the chat just yet, so I guess maybe I can kind of walk us through some of the kind of trig modes and how they work. So let's load up a sample chain, percussion, miscellaneous percussion, sliced, loop mode off. Okay, so if we go to slots, and I'll zoom in here so we can see the screen for a second. Oh, that's getting a little out of hand. Turn that down a little bit. Okay, so slots, if you look over here, you can see we've got 8 slots available with different hits going on there. And trigger that with a fill. So to play these via Midi, these slots, sorry, I've got my key step down here set to my auto channel, so it's on channel 11 right now. But you could also just send it specifically to whatever MIDI channel you have your track set on. I just like doing it this way because it makes it easy to just play whatever I have selected. If I recall correctly, the slots are basically 4 octaves down from the bass resting position on a key step. So that would be C0, I think. Maybe C1. I've got the, let's see. Here we go. Slots start at C1, slices start at C0. Okay, so yeah, it's 4 octaves down for slices, 3 octaves down for slots. So we'll go back over here. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, this starts to blink. Pressing C1 down here or C0 should play this first slide, or yeah, slice. Not. I think they actually have it backwards. I think slices. Did I have that backwards? What am I doing? Yeah, I think their notes are actually backwards. Slices starts at C1 and slots start at C0, so their release notes are a little off. That could be causing people some weird issues there. Yeah. So, sorry. And that would make sense, because you can have a maximum of 64 slices, but you can have 128 slots, so you're going to need that extra octave to kind of push it a little more into the center. But now if I hit these keys, here we go, we can play all of those, and we can record those in if we start live recording. This is gonna be awful, but we'll see what happens. We got some janky pattern going on. Let's just maybe take it down into like a much more percussive sound. Oh, here's another thing we got. We have randomization now. So if we hold any of these pages, like playback, amp, LFO, effect 1, effect 2, hold that down and hit yes, it'll randomize it. But before we do that, let's save our part so we have a way to go back to it. So I'm going to save that. And now if I hold this and hit yes, you see it selected a random slice, changed the pitch, changed the retrig time and length, and change the playback speed. Let's hit it again. Something different. Something different. We're getting into weirdness. Oh, there we go. Here's something. Let's make this release and hold a little longer so we can hear it. I'm gonna reload. Just go back. Like that. Maybe we can record some retrig. maybe leave this as a stereo delay. Maybe put some comb filter on it or something. Comb filter's always fun. Can I lock a parameter and check to see if it only randomizes non-locked? I believe it does. Here, let's give that a shot. So let's clear this out. And let's just make something a little predictable here. So we got alright, so let's set that as our bass sound. And then so let's lock that, and that. So now this one should stay the same. Yep. So now we could say, oh, these ones are cool. Let's keep it. Now let's randomize again. All right, that randomization sucked. Let's try again. All right, maybe we'll lock this one. We'll lock this one like that. And we're getting nothing fun there. Oh, let's turn time stretch off just in case. There we go. That's kind of fun. So yeah, if you parameter lock something, it'll only randomize trigs that don't have locks on them. So parameter locks override the randomization. I don't believe you can randomize. I don't believe you can randomize the locks like that are actually going on. You can only randomize the entire page, which will affect the default trigs, none of the locked trigs. So we've got, you know, all these different kind of stacked sounds going on now. So that's pretty fun. Maybe we can take this and actually, no, we'll lock this one too. And then we'll reload the part so that we've got a couple of others. We'll reopen this back up. God, that sounds terrible. Let's clear that out and let's just do some more of this. Alright, there we go. Take that. Go back in and then do some more of that live. Alright, and then we take a couple of these. And that's getting kind of repetitive. Let's maybe take this group and give them some probability. And yeah, that's kind of fun. Maybe take a couple of these, give give them some lower probability. Same with this guy. Give him a real low one. Oh, I accidentally reset my delay. That sucks. Oh well. I guess we could just randomize it, see what happens. It's fun. Let's see, we could do some slots. You can also do the delay control, which is kind of cool if you've got that echo freeze going on. I don't think that would be super useful with an external controller in this mode, but there is a second mode that you can use. And so the way you get to this and enable it is, here, let me show the screen again. Okay, so in our patch, if we go to Midi control, we've got our CC in, so that means sending CC messages to control the knobs. You could do that. You can turn that off or on if you want. Audio CC out, that's if you turn these knobs, do they send MIDI out? This is a default project I made just for messing around for this stream, so it's going to be out at the default. I normally turn that off just so I don't bust any other synths that I have plugged in. Audio node in. Okay, so there's off, that's just nothing will happen. There's standard. Standard is the old way, the like OS 1.3 and earlier implementation. So you've got like play, stop, record, pick up machine sync, like a bunch of controls are mapped to different MIDI notes, and then playing the different like 8 tracks of audio, just like triggering them is 1 octave, and then I believe 2 octaves below that is the span of chromatic for whatever channel you're on. It's in the manual, and there's plenty of people who have mapped out ways to use that mode. So that's still there. If you have old projects that need that, you could just stay in standard and it'll be good. Follow trig mode, that's basically what we've been using today. You switch your trig mode and then it changes what the MIDI notes that it receives do based on what it is. There's also this one, map/track. So let's leave that on and go out here. And so now what this lets you do is we can go back into just tracks, hit play, let this thing go. I got a fill condition on track 2, so let's cue that up. All right. So what we could do now is we could say, all right, this is a single cycle waveform, right? So with this single cycle waveform track, I always want external MIDI control to be chromatic for this one. So instead of doing, let me do the screen out again. Okay. So instead of the standard changing your mode like this, instead of changing mode this way, let's leave this here. If you hold MIDI and then press up and down, you get this. See, MIDI map track 1. I can say, track 1, have any incoming MIDI perform the chromatic mode on that. And then track 2 can be something completely different. We could say, we could do slots or chromatic on this one. This is another pitched sample, so we'll set that to chromatic as well. We'll go to 3, and we'll set 3 to slices. And so now, depending on what we're doing, let's just go directly to MIDI channel 1 on the key step. And I believe we go 2 octaves up, and we can play this chromatically. Yeah. So can see, and if I play notes, we've got a single cycle waveform chromatically. Then if we go to track 3, this is the one that's got slice control. If we go down 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Oh, I'm on the wrong freaking MIDI channel, that's why. Channel 3 for track 3. There we go. See, it messed me up. I should probably just go back to auto channel. There we go. So now I can hit keys and trigger slices while at the same time going here and playing this track chromatically. So if you have an external sequencer like a pyramid or a Hermod or an MPC or something, and you wanted to send a bunch of different channels, you could do that. You could, you could set up a track that's going to send chromatic note information for 1, and another track that's sending chromatic information for 2, and then a bunch of slice patterns that are generative going into track 3, and set up track 4 for something else. You could have it be slots. So then if we go 4 down, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Now we're playing different drums. So we can play all the different drum slots and still have the Octatrack available for doing something else. So then you might have your Octatrack in delay control mode. If you have a master track instead of a sample that's got like the stutter delay or whatever, you could be controlling all of that and then jump to a keyboard that's set to channel 1 and play, your chromatic stuff. So it just makes things really, really, really powerful. So the MIDI map mode, if you're using an external controller or external sequencers, I think that's like the way to go. There is one bug with it right now, and they've identified it. They've got a couple other ones. They're all really simple, so it should be pretty quick to fix. But if you're not focused on the track, the chromatic MIDI mapping doesn't work. So if we mapped this one to chromatic and we're selected over here, the chromatic MIDI isn't working yet, but they're going to try and get that out pretty quickly. From what I understand, they finally kind of have some time to really focus on some of the Octatrack firmwares. So now that the analogs are kind of in a good spot, the digi-line is in a good spot, they're kind of hoping they can like get a last little bit of errors flushed out and really kind of put a bow on the Octatrack, which honestly this update has been great so far. There's a couple of things that are weird. If we go back to pattern 2, this one, if I go to just regular mode and launch this, I have 2 bass lines on track 1 and 2 that are in place free mode right now, and this works fine. You can see I've got master length set to infinite, and it's 64 steps long, and 64 steps long for these, and these are both at a half, so this is actually 128 notes. And the reason I had to set the master to infinite instead of to 128 is plays free won't work correctly right now. If I go to 128, and we hit play. So you heard there was 4 notes in that bass line, right? 4, yeah. So if we trigger it, one of them is going to get cut off, and it depends on when in the pattern I hit these play steps. So we got 1, 2. Oh, it's just gonna make me a liar. 3. Son of a bitch. Okay, well, it's working today. Oh, nope, there it goes. It skipped 1. And I went to 2. So, you see that it actually, depending on what happens, sometimes it'll miss one of the trigs. It's like it's getting reset, and the reset is off from the pattern. Like, I don't know. It's like when you start these and they're like disconnected from the sequencer using the plays free mode, it kind of messes things up. But the way to fix it for now is just to, set this to 0 or infinite. And then in your pattern settings, you can just tell it to change after 64 steps or 128 steps or 16 steps, whatever you want to use. So that way, if you change your pattern, it'll actually, it'll move around the way you want it to. But yeah, that's the only bug, like new bug that I found in all of my testing with it. I know some other people have had some stuff they've run into, all pretty minor, like stuff that you can get around. They haven't done anything with pickup machines. No refinements there yet. I don't know a lot of people who use them. But if you are someone that uses them, it's not 100%. But the bit of experimenting I did with them has been okay. It'd be fun if they were like super ironed out or had some like nice features like built into them to work well. I could see like some fun uses for them, but it's not necessary for my use. I normally use the Octatrack as a Midi sequencing hub and a drum machine and a mixer. So I'll have 2 mono synths going into the inputs A and B, and then I've got my bandmate's guitar direct out going into input C, and I'll live sample that sometimes. And then the audio tracks are basically set up as a drum machine, and then I've got some through machines so that it mixes the synths. And so then all of our backing track just kind of comes out of one left to right for a mix engineer. And our guitars just go to the front of house through DI boxes. And then we've got like amps on stage just so we can hear them. But yeah, and for that use, like this firmware is not any worse than 1.3. Any issues I've had with 1.3, I think come down to this is, I've got some pretty old projects on here that have been going since like 2014, 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. And so it's just, I think I've updated it a few times, and each time I go through a new thing, it's you run the risk of your project getting a little corrupted. But so far, so good. I think if anyone's nervous about upgrading, I wouldn't say there's a big risk. I haven't run into any like massive crashes or big bugs, and all of the bugs that have been confirmed so far have been pretty minor stuff, like the Midi mode not working correctly for chromatic. And like I said, they're looking at fixing that pretty fast. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have something else they want to talk about? Anything? It doesn't have to be 1.4 related. If there's like techniques you want to mess around with, sequencer, just like general sequencer questions, how to set things up, stuff like that. I'm down. I'm gonna go back to this pattern and just do some let it just do some weird stuff. Make some creepy, go real creepy with it. Because I guess it's not too late. It's like 10:30 here. I don't know what time it is out where y'all are at. But late enough to let this pattern be creepy instead of like whatever it is. Why use plays free? There's no real advantage in this example pattern. A good way someone's... Let's get out of there. A good example someone else had is if you have like a pretty advanced loop going, you can, instead of doing the crossfader trick some people do, where they'll like resample the main output and then have it on a track, crossfade over, and then you've got a loop playing of your old thing so you can queue up other synths and then transition into a new song. You can treat plays free a lot like the clip mode in Ableton Live, right? Like the session view, where you just like can launch and unlaunch things. So if we go back to this, I can bring those two bass lines in and they'll go. And so now I could like let this build for a bit. And if let's take this and make it plays free as well. And we can make it like 1-2. So 1-2 means you press it once to start playing it, and then you press it again, you can turn it off. So I could like turn that one off, and now it's just finishing out its sample ones, and then it goes away. And this one's still going. So now we'll offset it. So now we've got kind of a round, you know, like I think that's the term, where you've got, you know, you have one person say something and then they go on to the next line and another singer comes in and plays it. It's like the example people always use is row, row, row your boat. You know, you'll sing row, row, row your boat, and then when you go to the next time through, another person starts a little off, and so you have a syncopated row, row, row your boat happening, and then a third person goes. Like old classical music, like fugues, operate on that kind of principle too. So now we've got these two playing, and they're out of sync with each other, and they're slightly panned, so that's kind of interesting. And we could let them both end, and then bring them both in together, and then now we can maybe bring this guy in. So it just kind of gives you the idea of like tape machine looping. That's a good example. And the other thing is, if you have like a loop, like if you bounce out a stem for like not like a DJ set, but like if you build up something in Ableton, maybe you're using Overbridge on some other synth and you have like a couple of tracks set up, you can have, and there's a video a guy did, if you look up, I believe it's like Octatrack plays free transition, or like new transition trick or something. It's a pretty old trick, but he shows how to do it. He actually sets up 2 parts, so it'll be an identical part and have 2 songs in a bank. So you can have one pattern set to part 1, and then move it to part 2. So with part 1, you've got it set up like this, right? So we can turn those off, and they finish. We turn this one off, and it's probably not going to go. So here's a catch. Here's a hang up that can happen with this. Track 3 has loop turned on, so it's going to play forever when you turn it off. Like, unless you have, like these are also set to infinite. the hold and the release, so it's just going to keep playing forever, and that sucks because now it's like I want that to shut up. So what this guy did is he set up a part where all of the tracks have a loop set to off, so that when you turn off the track, they go away, and then you can bring them in and out. But when he wants to transition to a new song, he switches to a different part that's got loop turned on. So then you can, because like if we go over here, let's just play this one. And disregard that the tempos are different. We'll put them back to the same tempo, and then we'll go to this pattern. So notice when we switched over to this, any pattern that you have that's set to place free doesn't start up when you first enter the pattern. So if you've got all 8 tracks with like stems that are place free, and you're in the mode that's got the machine settings on loop instead of what am I thinking? If you've got it on loop instead of loop turned off, then your pattern from the first one, like anything that was going on over here, if you set those going and then moved over to the next pattern, those will keep going. And then whenever you trigger the new pattern, you can, like, see, we just cut those 2 off like a bar later, which is completely, it sounds like garbage. This pattern wasn't made for it. But the idea is that you can kind of treat it like your pattern changes is like changing your row in session view in Ableton. And so you can switch to a new row and start playing a couple of new clips. And so you could have the drum loop from pattern 1 still going, and then take the bass line pattern, trigger the next one, and it will replace the looping sound with the new one. And then you've got like pattern 1's drum sound and pattern 2's bass sound. And then when you trigger track 1, you can replace the old drum sound with the new drum loop. Yeah, search for that on YouTube. It's like, well, yeah, Octatrack plays free transitions or something like that. If you search those terms, it'll show up. And he shows a much better example because it's like a techno set, so it makes a lot more sense in that context. But the tape machine looping thing where they're not connected to each other, that's another example that kind of works better for this. Like we could take this trig quantize value and go down with it to direct on all of these, so that as soon as you hit it, they start. So these are both the same. This one is an octave lower, but if we just like hit them together and maybe we'll like do some more hardcore panning, you can kind of hear. Yeah, so now we've got 1 and 2 going, and then we can like octave down 1. And this is like completely off the grid, completely unquantized. I think I had track 3 still set to, yeah. I had it direct, but. And the other nice thing is you could set up a plays free track as a one-shot, so you can hit it, it'll play through the pattern once and then stop. So the other nice thing, the one-shot doesn't make a lot of sense in this context, but turning those off, notice they stop playing, but also we've basically, once these finish, once those finish playing, we've essentially muted that track without muting the effects. So that reverb is still going on both of those. And then this pattern's still going. So we can bring them in. And then maybe just let them finish. And then they'll stop. And the reverb goes out. So now you've got a way of sort of muting your loops in a quantized manner, and you get to keep your effects tails. So that's another use you could use the plays free mode for. It's a little wonky. You can't just like load up a pattern and have everything going. But it's, you know, it's a pretty underutilized feature of the Octatrack to have 8 tracks independent of each other that you can kind of bring in and out in a way that's like a little more dynamic than just the Midi muting that the other boxes do, where it turns, just stops whatever Midi notes are coming through and then lets it finish. Or the audio muting that the Octatrack does, where it cuts everything off, because everyone hates that. But yeah, that's a fun thing you can do. What else? What else do we got? I don't know. Anyone else? It looks like we got a couple people still watching. Anything else you guys want to talk about, look at? Some other stuff I can think of that I don't see covered a lot would be the retrig amount. Maybe let's go back to this guy. Let's mute that. So let's go back to this pattern. And let's actually set this to a scale per track pattern so we can make this guy longer. We'll go half speed for now. That's a fun one. Live remixing arrange. Yeah. Plays free is good for changing your arrangement of your pattern. It just gives you, it's not really much different feeling wise, like when you hear it, than the way you unmute and mute tracks. Like you could start off with, you know, just that going and then unmute that. It's a very similar workflow, but it gives you the ability to play a track once and then have it stop. And then, you know, hit it, play it again, have it go through and stop. So you can kind of just queue up a phrase that you've programmed, rather than having to like kind of mute and then time your muting to like take the pattern back in and out and in and out. And you can also, you know, your recording trigs that you've got on your track. So if you set a plays free track and then throw a couple of recording trigs on, when you trigger that track, and if you have it set to like a one shot, it'll record while it's playing and then stop. And you could have another track that's referencing that record buffer that keeps going. And then you can just like have this phrase, like a fill, kind of come in and capture some audio and then take it back out and do other stuff. So plays free, it's got its moments. I don't know. If you like session view in Ableton, it's kind of outside of owning like a push or an Akai force. It's kind of the closest thing to that sort of a workflow that you can get. And obviously it's 10 years old, so it's a little different implementation. But what I wanted to look at was like kind of, then this is probably, I don't know if anyone's going to be into it, Berlin School, like Tangerine Dream kind of ratcheting sequencing. So let's mute that. to set our master length longer because this is slower now. Let's just go to 64. Alright, so now we've got these trigs going on here. And let's figure out, let's use our new trig preview to figure out where those octave ups are. Okay, so we got these two. So let's do this. So let's make this one a double. So let's do a ratchet. So if we go into our trig and go to a trig count, these trig counts are usually, I don't know, they seem kind of useless when you're using everything on the same time base. Like if you're just doing a 4/4 pattern at 120 beats per minute, these trig count ratchets kind of suck. They're like way too fast. And if you want to have that kind of like super fast thing, it makes more sense to just use the retrig in time, because you can go to audio rate with that. But for this, and it doesn't preview, that's one of the other things. The trig counts don't show up in preview yet. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix that or not, but they can try. So if we do like 3, so this will be like a weird triplet. Now we got and maybe let's take the filter on this guy down. There we go, like there, with a let's copy and maybe make that go twice as long. And maybe we'll change the pitch on this guy so it's a little different. So we've got these nice little kind of 16th notes on this 8th note scale pattern. You know, let's take, maybe we'll take these 3 and go up. 4 might be a little nuts. Let's take them down to 3, and we'll add, whoa, little too, going a little too nuts. There we go. Maybe we'll have them each kind of go a little higher. And then we can maybe take these 2 and pan them over, and this one pan it over. And then we can set our hold length a little longer. And set our release shorter. Actually, strike that, reverse it. We're going to set our release longer, and this hold time still very short. And maybe we'll just give everything a slight something like this. And then let's give all of these some probability. So we'll say at the beginning of the sequence we want very high, like 98%. Next 4, let's do 91. 81. And then 75? Yeah. So now we've got a little bit of a generative kind of ratcheting sequence going with a single cycle waveform. This has got a fill trig on it, so let's fill that. There we go. And the percentage, I don't know, the percentage chance on the trig conditions, I'm not super into for this kind of stuff. It can be good if it's like a really chaotic pattern, like an IDM kind of thing. I don't mind it so much there, but for this kind of thing, it's like there's almost too much of a chance that you're gonna lose momentum. Like, it's truly random, so you end up with a some big gaps. Sometimes it'll go, like, even though they're set to 75%, 80%, you could still go half a bar with nothing happening, and it can sound very concerning. So, maybe we'll take these and just kind of start randomly going through and do so now we've got some that are every X number of times through the pattern they'll go. I know this has nothing to do with 1.4, except for that this is way easier to do in 1.4 because you can select all those trigs at the same time. And likewise, if we like these two octave up trigs, we can copy both of those and then paste them here. So if I paste starting here, we're going to get track 6 or trig 6 on step 11 and trig 8 on 13. When they decide to play. Oh yeah, I've got, I think there's some locks on here that are, changing the reverb decay time. That's probably not helping anything here. Oh well, whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much it. 1.4 added some stuff that's pretty cool. And then obviously the Octatrack in general I still think it's one of the best instruments. It's very fun. It was the first Electron box I got, and it was like my first hardware sequencer too, actually, so I kind of just dove right in. I didn't have a choice but to learn it. Oh, you know what? One thing I'm forgetting. Let me go to the close-up. One of the other changes to the UI, when you're in this this mapped mode, if you see down here, look how you've got the trig mode on the left, and then you can actually tell what each track is mapped for based on the second half. So if I change, we're in track mode here, I can change the Octatrack to chromatic, and now we get the little keyboard on the left. So that little keyboard is saying, okay, the Octatrack's playing chromatically, but track 3, the track you have selected, is in slices mode. I think that's what the little diagonal line is. Yeah. And so if we set it to slots, slots is the little square grid. I don't know if that's a great idea. Like, that doesn't say slots versus slices to me. I guess the slice makes sense. If we go back into slice mode for this track, like, it looks kind of like a slice in like a Rex file, like in Reason, or like the range for slices in Ableton. So I guess if you can memorize the one that looks like Ableton or a Rex file, that's slices, and then the other one, the blocky, is what do you call it? The freaking slots. Jesus, slots. then you can also have delay control. Delay control just looks like, I guess that's a delay, like one hit and then a quieter hit, like that's the visualization. The visualization of a delay for them. And then what is mute? What does mute one look like? Oh, mute's easy. It's a speaker with an X through it. So, little speaker with an X. Sending MIDI on this channel will mute MIDI and audio tracks. So, yeah. And likewise, you got, I guess up here, this makes a little more sense. You see the slots is a big bunch of grid, and then the slices is like a slash through it. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. It's like a box that's been sliced in half. And then mute, and then, yeah, delay controls like an echo, 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 echo. Right. So you've got dual indicators when you're in this mode. If I go back in and fix this, oops, if you know where you're going, Adam. If we just go to follow trig mode, you see there's only the one icon down there. It's just, oh, you're in delay mode. Everything's going to respond to delay. You're in chromatic mode. Everything's going to be chromatic. Or slots mode, everything's going to be slots. Likewise, if we, again, go back to the map track, then you can see we're in track mode on the octa, and then this is a slice, this is a chromatic, that's a chromatic, that's a slots, etc., etc. So that's kind of a neat little thing. Yeah, shit. I don't know, man. I don't really have anything else, and I've been going for an hour to cover like 5 basic feature implementations. Oh, you know what's kind of fun? We could do, this is going to sound like garbage. Let's go to this one, the slices, right? Yeah. If I put like the arpeggiator, and this is going to be completely out of sync with the Octatrack, but you can have an arpeggiator and play slices via the arpeggiator, which is really fun. And then you can like do slow or really fast. And this is kind of a throwback because the mono machine, oops, hitting the mic, jeez, amateur move. Yeah, the mono machine has that sort of thing. There's the beatbox machine in the DigiPro, like the wavetable section. It's got a bunch of PCM like drum slices set up chromatically across the keyboard, and automating or like live playing the arpeggiator with that mode is really fun for just creating like random glitchy IDM drums. And so if you wanted to use MIDI loopback, you could take the MIDI out into the MIDI in, and then set up a MIDI track that's going to control, your drum slice track. And the arpeggiator on the Octatrack is P-lockable, so you could set up, a trig here that's got two octaves, which would be like 24 slices worth or whatever, at a really slow speed, and then over here you got a really fast, like 30-second note, descending, whatever. And then when you send that information to your slice track, you can get all sorts of weird, glitchy patterns going on. So, yeah, I don't know. That's it. Anything else before I go? Otherwise, it was good hanging. Thanks for coming out. There's a few people here. Looks like what, like we got 7 right now. That's pretty good. You know, this is my first live stream. I've been putting up videos for a while just of me dinking around with stuff, and I've been, you know, I've done a couple of little tutorial vids here and there, and they're fun. I love like showing people how to do stuff. And yeah, I don't know. Just wanted to see if maybe doing it live would be more or less fun. It's definitely easy to ramble when you're talking about these kind of machines and all the esoteric shit that's going on with it. But it's fun. I don't know. I'm running out of gas. It's 11. I should probably have some more coffee if I'm going to be up, or I should just go to bed. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to hang out for a little bit and maybe let this thing do some more we'll go back into spoopy mode. Yeah, and hang out. Put any last requests in the chat, and any just good nights would also be welcome, because I'm sleepy. And yeah, if you liked this, I guess do the dumb YouTube stuff, and then you can let me know that you would like to learn some other stuff. We could do one on the Analog 4 or the Digatone, Digitact, Machine Drum, Mono Machine, or some other shit. I don't know. If I've got it and I feel remotely confident using it, I'm down to show people how to do things if they're having trouble. You're a cat? Cool. I see. Bass. Fun. Rhythm. So funny story, I don't have a rhythm. I used to have one, and my friend decided that he missed having one, and so he traded me straight across for his machine drum. So I have a machine drum UW now, but I don't have a rhythm anymore, unfortunately, because it's pretty cool. It's a cool box too. It was the one I got on the least well with, though. You know, I honestly was, I don't know. I think it's like, I definitely need that to be a component of a larger rig, you know? I need to like have something else doing the synths and then something else just kind of dedicated for drums. Whereas the machine drum, you can almost get away with just making weird synth sounds with the engines. And the Digitact is like a miniature Octatrack in that you can, you know, load up phrases in pretty high quality or do single cycles really easily. Although I guess you could probably do that. You could do single cycles with the machine drum too. And the rhythm, they support it. I just never got into it. I was always using it for the synthesis engines. I didn't really do sampling too much with it. Which is kind of a waste, because then like those tom tracks, I don't know, they're kind of worthless if you're not using samples. Or you're not like going for a very specific vintage kind of sound. So that's where I ended up with the rhythm. I do miss it sometimes. Cool, you're welcome. Thanks for tuning in for a bit. And obviously this will be up, so everyone can watch me ramble in perpetuity. And yep. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call it tonight. But yeah, I know there was a couple people who had asked for some breakdowns on a couple of machine drum vids that I'd posted, and there was one I did with the Octatrack, which I was actually, it was my experiment with the what would be 1.40. I didn't use any of the features in the video, so you could tell what it was, obviously, since not allowed to talk about it until it's released. But there's some pretty interesting stuff with drums that I enjoyed doing with that. So maybe we could do some streams on those, and kind of, instead of doing a hour-long me sort of talking, assuming what people want to know about something, we could pull them up and people can listen to it and have specific things they want to check out. But yeah, I'm gonna call it. Y'all have a good night, and enjoy your Octatracks or your synths or your other instruments, your violins, your cellos, your saxophones, whatever you play, or your paintbrushes if you do that, you know, any of that. Whatever you're doing that's creative and fun, I hope you enjoy it and keep doing it, because it's all we got, man. Well, I appreciate that Meowington Meowsworth appreciates the work. I don't know if it's work. I was just hanging out and answering questions. But yeah, if you learned something and you and your cat brethren can use it to scam some people out of catnip for tracks like busking on the street, then cool. But yeah, have a good night, everyone.